Sigmund Rascher was born on February 12, 1908 in Munich, Germany. Rascher was the third child of Hans August Rascher, who worked as a physician. Naturally, Sigmund would follow his father and would become someone involved in the medical field as well.
Rascher started to study medicine in Munich in 1933. In the same year, he also joined the NSDAP, better known as the Nazi Party of Germany. He finished his studies and received his doctorate in 1936. After 6 years in the Nazi Party, Rascher was promoted from a private to a Schutzstaffel, which literally translates into protection squad. In the same year, he was enlisted as a doctor into the Luftwaffe. The Luftwaffe was the German Air Force and served as the primary aerial force used in World War II under Commander Hermann Göring. Luckily for Rascher, he had gained direct access to the Reichsführer of the Schutzstaffel, Heinrich Himmler. Rascher had the privilege to speak with Himmler directly through his relationship and eventual marriage with former singer Caroline Dial. It is unclear about the relationship between Dial and Himmler, but it is suggested that they may have been former lovers.
In 1941, as the captain in the Luftwaffe's medical service, Rascher suggested that a high-altitude or low-pressure experiment should be carried out using human beings. Monkeys were used as subjects beforehand, but Rascher had noted that it did not produce meaningful results.
Plans were developed for the experiment in 1942 and were scheduled to happen at the Dachau concentration camp located in southern Germany in the early spring and summer of the same year. Using a portable pressure chamber supplied by the Luftwaffe, the victims were put in and locked inside. The interior pressure was then lowered to a pressure level to simulate the conditions of what a free-falling pilot would feel without oxygen. Many trials proved fatal. This experiment was focused on the science and how the human body and brain would respond to high pressures. To give you a feeling, symptoms of high pressure on the body include severe headaches, fatigue, difficult breathing due to the extreme compression of the lungs, and extreme chest pain. Furthermore, Rascher conducted freezing experiments on behalf of the Luftwaffe on 300 test subjects without the consent of authorities. The purpose of these experiments were to determine the best way to warm up pilots that had been forced into the North Sea and had suffered from hypothermia. The test subjects were forced to stay outdoors naked in freezing water for 14 hours, or kept in a tank of ice water for 3 hours. Information was recorded through a series of electrodes. Warming of the victims were then attempted by multiple methods, but the most successful one was immersion into hot water. One assistant had noted that some victims were thrown into boiling water to be warmed up. This experiment was also focused on the science of the human body and how the blood and body would react to heat, and the best method on cooling the body and blood down. Rascher had also tested blood coagulation experiments by using the effects of polygal, a substance made from beets and apple pectin, which aided blood coagulation created by Rascher himself. He thought that these results could aid soldiers in both combat and post-combat. Rascher tested this theory by shooting his victims in the neck or chest and amputating limbs without the use of anesthesia. Rascher published his article regarding this experiment, however, without detailing the nature and results of the experiment. This experiment, similar to the freezing experiments, was related on the topic of blood. How can we make the bleeding stop? What are the actual effects of polygal? How do beets and apple pectin help coagulation? How do these ingredients affect the blood within the body? These are the scientific questions that Rascher asked himself. Rascher was executed on April 26, 1945 in Dachau.
After the Allies had won the war, many of the doctors were captured by Allied forces and were put on trial in August of 1947. This was when most of the crude experiments conducted by Rascher and other Nazi doctors were exposed to the public. The news quickly spread throughout different countries, and the experiments had finally been communicated to other people.
The news rumors lingered throughout newspapers when the war ended, and many people finally knew about what was going on inside of the different concentration camps, since not many dared to investigate what was actually going on inside. These findings were extremely useless to anybody working on in the science field, as these extreme experiments were conceived for extreme findings and for extreme situations. In what real-life situation out of World War would a regular person be submerged in freezing water for over 2 hours and still survive? These findings were useless to the public. The Nazis were just stupid.
However, the news died down and it became irrelevant a few years after with the founding of the United Nations, an organization dedicated to bring peace to the world. Today, many people have heard and know rumors about the Holocaust, but not many know about the actual science experiments happening inside. It had been some of the darkest moments in human history, and the majority of the population would not like to revisit these experiments.